Welcome to Wisconsin Literacy's Journey Through Literacy, sponsored by New Glarus Brewing Company. Wisconsin Literacy is a nonprofit statewide coalition of literacy agencies. We strengthen literacy statewide through expert trainings, personalized consultations, health literacy, workforce connections, and advocacy. Today's session is Literacy at Work. I'm excited to introduce our presenters, Paula Hernandez, Human Resources and Payroll Manager at Eden-Valders Stone, a quarry in Fond du Lac County, and Juana Montes-Hernandez from Fond du Lac Literacy Services. So welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you all for joining us today and for Wisconsin Literacy to invite us to talk about our workplace literacy program. I just want to start, so Beth, if you can advance the screen, please, just to tell you a little bit more about Fond du Lac Literacy Services. We make a meaningful difference in the lives of adults in Fond du Lac County, one person at a time, to develop their their reading, writing, speaking, and math skills. If we can advance again. Just want to tell you a little bit more about our program specifically. We're a nonprofit. We're located on the second floor of the Fond du Lac Public Library, where we have an office, and all of our one-on-one tutoring is typically done in the library with volunteer tutors. Our only group class that we offer right now is the Workplace Literacy Program, and all of our learners are adults 18 years and older. So if we can go on. So learners come to Fond du Lac Literacy for a variety of different reasons. Some of the learners who their first language is not English enroll as an ELL student to improve their reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills. Some want to increase their employment, get a better job, practice for interviewing, get a promotion, or just be able to communicate with their supervisors and coworkers. Others are trying to enhance their literacy skills and their daily life skills by budgeting, learning more of the culture and in the area that we live in, just finding out more resources about the community and how to navigate through that. We also help prepare individuals for GED or HSED, like a high school equivalent diploma, and help them prepare for citizenship. Like I said, our only group class is workplace literacy. Otherwise, everything else is one-on-one with a volunteer tutor. So if we can advance, please. So a little bit of background and how we started our workplace literacy program. So with Eden Stone, like I said, that is our only group class we have, and that is the only employer that we work with for the workplace literacy program. We had a partnership in years prior, at least 7 years, that they were familiar with our program. They always supported our program by being a sponsor at some of our fundraisers, had flyers that they would encourage their employees to reach out to us, used our promotional materials by having posters, and gave out our business cards and referred them to the library if they had the need for literacy. So we can go on. So once we had that partnership, it was a very easy conversation to have the discussion about how we can help serve their employees. So Eden Stone has about 200 employees, and half of them are Hispanic Spanish speakers. So being that they always encouraged our program, they had a number of different students that were interested, but some things in their life just kind of got in the way and they weren't able to actually commit. So some of the discussions started that way. And then also, so I talked through all of their goals, the priorities that they had for their company and what the expectations of their employees, and then some of the challenges, like some of the students that were interested and just couldn't attend. So we started looking to develop a program to offer this group class to them. I used a lot of the Wisconsin literacy resources available on their website, went through some of the webinars that were very helpful. The needs assessment that is also on the website, that is what I gave to Eden Stone, and we talked through all of that that questionnaire to find out more information about how we could help. And then once we developed some kind of class structure that we wanted to go with, we also had a memorandum of understanding, an MOU that we worked through with Eden Stone. So once we were able to get through some of those steps, was developing the curriculum. We looked at a lot of different curriculum that was available to us that we were kind of using for our one-on-one tutoring. What we ended up using was the Intercambio Uniting Communities series of books. So it's the Confidence and Connections that we use during class. And then because of the needs assessment that we went through with Eden Stone, we also found that there was some focus we wanted to put on safety for them. So we used the Conversations for Work workbook on New Readers Press. We pulled some lessons from that book and then also used Intercambio to help them gather more daily skills. And then we also used a lot of realia to Eden Stone gave us their safety gear, their work forms, and part of the lessons for safety is when we went through talked about vocabulary, using the English terms for their safety and helping them understand the work forms that were all available to them and that they needed to know about for their work. So those were some of the specifics that Eden Stone wanted us to go through. So we can go on to the next slide, please. So when we worked together, some of the things that we had to communicate through were, we just started with a sign-up sheet because she had about 5 to 7 different employees that were interested. She put up a sign-up sheet, which meeting Paula at Eden Stone, and recruited about 15 to 25 students. So I went in before our classes started, before we even had dates set, and I did the whole intake process that we typically would do with our students coming in individually. So we had a big chunk of time, at least 1 to 2 hours that we took to go through the intake process. And then we also did our testing, which is TABE, the Testing Adult Basic Education. So we tested all of the students so we could kind of find a level that they were at. And that was going to be what we were going to base on our class sizes and the classes that we were going to have. So if we can advance. So once we had all of those details sorted out, we began our class January 2019. It was fee for service. So within our MOU, we had all of those fees stated with Eden Stone. We knew it was going to be on site. So they provided a space to us. In the picture, you can kind of see their gallery that they have in their basement level of their office. So the classes were going to be right there at Eden Stone. We started out with an 8-week pilot class just to kind of see how well that was going to work out with the days and times that we chose. And then at least halfway through that 8-week period, we knew that we were going to continue. It was working out for their time that they were coming, attending classes and the group sizes. So we extended that to 16 weeks. So that first chunk was during the winter. And then we didn't have class during the summer. That's their busiest time. So then we came back in the fall and did another 16-week class. And then that was all a new MOU that we worked out for that second 16-week class. And the classes were 2 days a week. We would go there at 3:30 to 4:30. That hour went very fast. And that's when we had about 28 employees, give or take 10 to 14 each class. One of the classes was more of our beginner students that we were in a lower level book. And then the second class was more of advanced students. And it just happened that they were pretty much split half and half. So that made our job easier, that we were able to split them up between those 2 classes. And we were able to know that those were good, a good level for each student because we tested them. So if we can advance on. So like we said, we have Paula here from Eden Stone. And I'm just going to go through a few different questions with her. So Paula, the key reasons you decided to offer the literacy class.
Okay, so as we mentioned before, we have about 100 Spanish speakers. And I am the only HR manager at Eden-Valders Stone. And I'm also bilingual, so I would have employees coming in by me and they would ask me if I could make them a doctor appointment or if I could book a plane ticket for them and things like that. And with almost 200 employees, it's almost impossible to have that kind of time to go through those things. So I would help them at the time. And then I would give them a brochure that I had for the Fond du Lac literacy. And then I was giving them out like almost every other day. So I gave one a heads up and I said, hey, just so you know, I'm sending you a bunch of people because they're really interested in your program. And she mentioned that there may be an issue with having enough tutors for all the students. So we started talking about, well, what if we have a group session and where would be the best place to have this group session? And then we thought, you know what, I think it's best if we have it right at Eden Stone. That way there's no excuses that they can't get there or, you know, I was at home and I forgot and that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, if we offered it right there, we would get more participation. So that's how the whole class started.
Okay, thank you. What are some of the challenges and issues you needed to consider in your decision of having this group class?
Well, the first thing I had to do was I had to talk to the supervisors because they're the ones who are going to let me know what times are best for them. I talked to all of them. We have several different locations. I had to find out if they were willing to let some of these employees from our Oakfield and Chilton areas come to Eden on those days to participate in the class. And we did get 100% buy-in by all the supervisors. And they all agreed that towards the end of the day was better. So we got through that. And then the next challenge was basically, where do we have a spot big enough to house all these students? Are we going to have too many students? What days are best? You know, just simple things like that.
Okay, thank you. And then did you consider the class a success?
Yes.
And what was those successes that you saw?
I did have a lot of students come to me, employees that were in the class, and they said that was the best thing I could have ever done. I'm able to make my own doctor appointments. I understand some of these forms a little bit better. I wasn't seeing as many people coming in asking me for help, and I was hearing through the grapevine that they were practicing their English on with coworkers, and they were helping other coworkers who did not take the class with some simple appointment making skills, things like that. And then they were also recruiting more people by word of mouth because they took the class. So I knew that it was a benefit to them or they wouldn't have said anything.
And then challenges you found after implementing the program.
What we ran into was there was a few students that just stopped going to the class, and we had to reevaluate the incentive that we gave the students or the employees to be in the class in the first place. So what was happening is we allowed the employees to come to class, and Eden-Valders Stone paid them for that hour that they were getting their class. And for those students that just stopped coming, we ended up having to charge them back for what the company did pay already for them to be in class. So that was really our only challenge that we found after we implemented it. And there weren't many, it was just a couple students.
Okay, thank you. If you can advance on then, Beth, please. All right, so I just wanted to go through a little bit more about what we saw on our side and what we learned from the program. Some of how we evaluated and how we saw the success was we did surveys. So we did a initial survey when the students enrolled. We wanted to know more about what their goals were and what they wished to learn. So then mid through, about 8 weeks later, we gave them back that goal list, and we had them evaluate themselves at that point and what more they wanted to improve or if this is what they were expecting at this time. And then we also did one at the end of class, and that was also very helpful for us to gather more information as we continued on. And the challenges that we saw was throughout the class, we got to know our students and knew what kind of different levels they were at. And some were in the beginner class, there was low beginner and there was high beginner. So once we were going to go on to the next 16 weeks, they finished their book. Naturally, we would just go on, or we would evaluate that individual person. It was a little bit more difficult because there was 10 to 14 students that we had to decide on which book to go on. We were going to just go right on to the next, or if we should do review like we would if we were individual tutoring. So the surveys helped us decide on that, and we were able to move some students into the advanced class, and then also keep some students in the beginner class and repeat some of the lessons that they needed more help on. With that, we were able to make some changes and improve our next 16 weeks that we'll be offering. Our goal is to have our students in the group as initial instruction, and then they'll break up in smaller groups with a volunteer. So we're hoping to have volunteers that are for one for every 2 to 3 students. All of the instructors in our class, our main instructor and our volunteers they're all volunteer. There's no paid instructor at all. So that's one of our goals, is to have more volunteers there as we split up in groups after that main instruction for the lesson is done. And all the future classes, we will continue doing the same thing, reevaluating our curriculum, looking at who we have as new students. Eden is always hiring more people, and they have new people that we'll have to test going forward. So we'll have to just continue reevaluating that and finding a good system for that. And we'll consider the student feedback and also the employer's feedback on anything that they want to improve or to have more of a focus on. We're not set on just sticking with the curriculum in the confidence and connection workbook that we use. We want to be able to offer more of a focus if it is more safety or vocabulary specific for Eden-Stone. So that's what we will consider when we reevaluate our curriculum. So if we can move on, and if there's any questions.
Thank you. There are some questions that did come in. Looks like Nancy Pike had a question, 2 questions, and you had just answered one about the instructors being volunteer-based and not paid. So I think that one was already answered. Okay. But there was one back for Paula about testing for learners. And what test did you use for initial testing of learners?
Oh, actually, Ms. Juana, I can answer that. We use TABE for their initial testing. So the testing adult basic education, the standardized test that we use for our individual students also. But then when we did an 8-week evaluation, we used the pre-test review evaluation that's in the book. So we did that 8 weeks. And we only tested the TABE one time within that whole year. So when we continue the class again, we'll TABE test them again.
Thank you. Those were the only 2 questions that came in. If there's other questions. How do you do that, Juana, if you have different levels, Sabrina's asking, in one class?
We try to keep, when we TABE test, we kind of get like a 0 to 1 level and then 2 to 3. So 0 to 1 was just obvious. We would put them in our beginner class, but it was those mid classes, those mid levels, the 2 to 3 going on to level 4. Is where we talk to the individual specifically. I even showed them the book. This is what you would be doing in the beginner class. This is what you will be the content for the advanced class. What do you feel comfortable with? We did have a few different students that wanted to challenge themselves and go into the beginning class. So we kind of put them together with somebody that was more advanced and was willing to help them through some things that might have been a little bit more difficult for their level. So we had students working together, and then we also, we were fortunate to have enough volunteers that could work with those individuals too, that were in a more advanced class for themselves.
Great, thank you. And Cynthia is asking if it's TABE Class E, if you can confirm.
Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, it is Class E.
Thank you. A few more questions coming in. How did you come up with the fee you arranged with Eden Stone?
So I used Wisconsin Literacy's spreadsheet that they have on their website. Forgot to mention that. So we pretty much put all of in that website. It's a really good spreadsheet. You can put all of your the time that goes into planning and what needs to be done for the class itself. So we were able to base on off of that, and that's what I proposed to Eden Stone.
Thank you. And we did put in the chat a link to the website where the spreadsheet Juana is referencing is, along with some other resources. And that spreadsheet was something we got from Literacy Network in Dane County a number of years ago. So if there are no more questions, I want to thank Juana and Paula for putting the time together to share your experiences in developing your program. And we thank you for attending Wisconsin Literacy's Literacy at Work, sponsored by New Glarus Brewing Company. The next event is Journey to Reentry on Monday, September 20th from 12 to 12:30. Azi Adesi shared what community members can do to help once justice-involved individuals are released from prison. He shared the obstacles they overcome and their determination. This was pre-recorded, but we will have a conversation live at the end of his presentation. Sign up for the Journey Through Literacy to get the full engagement experience and to enter your local literacy agency in a raffle. Registration information for both is in the chat box. And if you enjoyed this session, please consider a gift to Wisconsin Literacy to support literacy and workforce efforts statewide at wisconsinliteracy.org.